Hello, this is Mohammed. Today we're going to look at files programming star rules, and this includes things like file naming convention, header and source file layout, and templates. The very first rule that I'd like to introduce is that file name shall use lowercase letters only. And the reason for that is that some file systems are not case sensitive. So they don't distinguish between uppercase and lowercase letters. So it's a lot safer to just follow lowercase letters. Okay, and of course, if your file name contains multiple words, then just use underscore to separate them. This is the method and the style that I personally prefer, and I find it very helpful and extremely safe to use. Okay, so let's create a simple file to demonstrate this. So now let's say that I want to create a new file that is some sort of an actuator. So I'm just going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it actuators. I just like to keep my file organized, and then let's create a new header file. I'm going to call it drv8038, and probably haven't heard of this. That's just a motor driver, like a DC motor driver IC that I use, and I just decided to use it because I can't bother to think of something new, and I think it's called 8308, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to follow full lowercase letters, and then this one is a motor, so I want to add another word to the name, so I'm going to use underscore to separate it. Sorry, that needs to be motor. Okay, so drv8308 motor is the file name. So I created a header file. Now I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to create a source file as well for that. And as you can see, that's basically the naming convention for files. I followed full lowercase, and then I have multiple words. That's easy. I just separate them with an underscore. And that is rule 1. Now, rule number 2 states that file names shall be as small as possible, yet descriptive of its purpose. Okay, now the reason for that reason why you can't have long file names is that there will be an issue for file path length. So the longer the file name, the longer the file path will get. And now imagine your folder name is long, your file name is also long, then you can get into trouble if your file path is extremely long. Okay, so basically file name need to be as short as possible, yet very descriptive. So in my case, drv8308 is the name of the driver chip, and then motor is just to make it easier for anyone to read it, that this one is just a motor library. Okay, so I think that's a very good name for it. Oh, a bad name would be just, you're right, drv8308. It's not particularly bad. It's just not going to be easy to understand that this one is a motor library. But with adding motor, it makes it a lot more descriptive with just a few little characters. Okay, excellent. Now the third rule I want to highlight, and I think this one is extremely significant, and it can make your life very easy, make your life a lot easier if you follow it. And that is, you shall use file template for both header and source file. So you don't have to write the header and source file from scratch every time. You can use file template for that. So things to keep your comment, your header, and some of the main component of the header and source file that we're going to explore in details later on in this video, of course. Okay, so now I want to introduce something really interesting. Eclipse features a code template tool that allows to generate header and source file templates with a predefined settings or templates such as comments, copyright notice, multiple include protection, and more. So in fact, I already have something set up by default. So when I created my header file, it wasn't completely empty. Eclipse automatically added some comment. So that's the file name. and the date in which the file was created, and the author. So the author is kind of funny. It takes my system name, like my PC type is HP, and I couldn't bother to change it to my name. And it doesn't have any additional thing, but it's quite useful. It does the multiple include protection for me already, and that's really handy. But I would like a little bit more predefined, more custom one that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so we're going to, I have already created a template that I personally use daily, and I'm going to share it with you and show you how you can add it to the Eclipse template formatting tool. Okay, and then we're going to get into the details on what header file needs to look like and what the source file need to have in terms of the styling rules. Okay, I like to do this first because it makes my life a lot easier later on. Okay, so let's begin. Now, in order to use Eclipse Code Template tool, you need to navigate to Window, Preferences, and then go to CC++, expand this tree, and then go to Code Style, and now click on Code Templates. As simple as this. Now we have three options. We have the comments, the code, and the files. We're mainly going to use the comments and the files. So on comment, expand comment and click on files. And this one is going to show you the comments, like the comment template within a file. So this is the default one. Whenever you create a file, automatically the comment would look, I'm just going to go to the source file. The comments will be added to every header and source file, and it uses this default one. I want to change it. I have my own template, so I'm going to import the one I personally use, and let's have a look at how it looks. So click on import and navigate to the file location, and luckily it already opened this automatically because I've opened this last time, so that's a lot easy. And you need to select the file comment template XML file. Okay, so I'm going to include all these down in the description of the video because we're going to use them for this video today. I don't think we're going to use the format for this video, but we are going to use the file comment, the header, and source file XML today. For this one, click on the comment and click open. And here we go. So this one is imported my favorite comment template. What this does is that it's gonna include the file name. It's going to include when this one was created on and the author, which is kind of the user. Oops, in fact, we have a problem. That's not exactly the one I use. I usually have a created on, and I have description including copyright notice. So I'm just going to copy the text manually, and I'm going to provide it in a text file so that you can do the same. So what you need to do basically is that you click on files and click on edit, and this will allow you to change this text and add your own comment. I like to use this particular one. So this it's a very simple one, and it has a file name, so that's kind of a variable, system variable. This is automatically going to add the file name .h or .c. And this one is the date, and the author, I want to write my own name. You can change this to your name, and the copyright notice, depending on the year which the file created, this will automatically be populated, and then your name, your company name, whatever copyright author is. And then this copyright notice, and you can change it based on your application. In my case, I'm happy with this, so I'm going to click on OK, and now I'm going to click apply and close and demonstrate what's going to happen if I recreated this file again. So I'm going to delete these files on purpose. So I'm going to delete them both, and I will create them again. So I'm just going to create the header file for now. So that's drv8308 underscore motor.h. And here we go. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? So I've got my date, file name, author, description. So I've got my copyright notice as well, and all nice looking. So that's how we can use this one for comments. Now let's have a look at how we can use it for header file templates. Okay, and so to use it for header file templates, you need to navigate back to the same thing, so the code style code template, but now click on files and click on header file. Okay, now we have this default header template and I can change it. I can click on this and I can import this one, and now this is a mutex header, which in a matter of fact it looks exactly the same as the default header. So click on apply close, and now when I create this header file again, I'm going to delete it now multiple times today, but that's okay. So I'm going to create this file again. I don't think anything will change, to be honest, because it's kind of the same as the default, but I just want to try it. Okay, so excellent. So what this does is that this one has our multiple include protection. This one is called multiple include protection. So if this file was included once, it's not going to be included twice in the same header path, because otherwise it's going to be a problem if you include this one multiple times in the same source file. Okay, so this one is a very important protection, and that's header template does this for us, and that's really useful. And now you can put all your code in between these protection. You can't put header file code outside here, because that's the whole point of this. Okay, now let's have a look at source file templates, which I think is already a good one. Okay, now source file template normally doesn't have any of these, it only has the top comment, which I think it already does. So let's have a look again just to double check. I'm going to go to preferences, C file. The default one looks like this. Let me import my own one. And of course, I'm going to include these files down in the description so that you can use them the same as well. Now, mutex source template only has the file comment. Okay. Now, includes and declarations are something kind of automatic code, and I don't like that. So click on this, apply and close. Now, when I create the file again, not again, of course, just the source file, underscore motor.c. Here we go. So I get my comment and my copyright notice and everything the same as the header file. And this is extremely useful. So if you're creating a header and source file, you don't have to rewrite all these manually. Eclipse code template can handle that for you. Okay, and that's basically what I wanted to show you on the Eclipse code template tool. Now let's continue with the tutorial, and I'm going to show you how you can use we're going to discuss specific rules to header and source files. Now let's begin with header files specifically, and there are multiple rules associated for header files only. Okay, the first rule for header file is that file shall contain protection against multiple include, just like what we have here. This one is a must according to my programming style, because this is going to guarantee there are no multiple includes for this header file. Okay, and probably it's a good idea to demonstrate this case, but I think I'm gonna leave it here, assuming you know what multiple include protection is. It's basically when you go to the main, for example, and do include for our library, drv8308 something. I think I also need to include its path because it doesn't recognize it automatically. So go to General, Path and Symbol, GNU-C, and I am going to add a path to the actuator directory. So I'm going to use the project directory to use an absolute path and a dynamic one. and I'm just going to write the name of my file, which is actuators. Excellent, and click apply close. And now I believe this one shall automatically be recognized when I click on control space. Excellent. So now when I include this, okay, and try to build, that's probably okay. And I can include something here like standard library.h, something like that. And I can probably do a type div. I just want to demonstrate something, just bear with me a minute. And I'm going to call this just test type div for now. So if I include this in the main, and then one of those headers also included this, or let's say my MPU 6050. This video is probably going to be very long, but that's okay, I think. So if this one also included this header file and its header path, okay, and if I build, no problem with that, because it's only going to be included once through this one, and then when it goes to the second include in the main, it's just not going to get there because it's already defined. But when I get rid of these multiple defined protection, let's see what happens. Now let me build. Now, sure enough, compiler complains because it sees this multiple times. It's already been declared, but because I included it twice, once in here and once directly on the main, it's a problem. So that's why this one is very important. And that's basically what I want to demonstrate by all this. Okay, well, excellent. Now when I put this back, no problem at all. It's only going to be defined once, and then the second include will just be ignored. All right, I hope this makes a point. So now I am going to get rid of this code that I've written. Okay, now, so that's rule one on the header file. The second rule on header files is that you should not declare variables or allocate storage space at all in the header file, because it's going to cause memory allocation whenever the header file is included in any other file. And that's obviously a problem. Let me demonstrate that in fact. So if I try to define a variable here, like integer value equal to 13, okay, we're just gonna declare a variable here. And that's against rule 2, of course, but I just want to highlight why that one is important. Okay, now let's assume this one is not included here. It's only included in the main. When I build, it's okay. It's happy with it. But when I include this one multiple times in any of my header file, like in here, this variable is going to be declared twice. Once by this here and the other one by the main. Now, of course, the multiple include protection is there, but let's see if it does any work. It doesn't, because this one is only protection against header include, so this one only works for includes. It doesn't work for integer, because this one, the compiler is going to look at this header file. It's included twice, and it has variable definition. It's not like an include only. It's a variable declaration, variable definition, basically, okay? So you can't do this in a header file. That's basically in short. Okay, excellent. Now, rule number 3 is only do the necessary includes in the header file, and the rest shall go in the source file. And what I mean by this is that if you need to write function prototypes here, that require Boolean, like Boolean PRV8308 motor initialize, something like that. You need to use Boolean, and it needs to be defined in the header file. So here you have to include standard Boolean.h, because you're using this variable type directly here. However, if you're doing some string manipulation in the source file, so when you go to the source file and write this function definition, so let me include the library header file. And if I want to define this function, and let's say I want to do some string, I don't know, string, find a string within another string and things like that, or string copy, then I need to include the string library. In this case, I don't have to. I shouldn't include it in the header file. It's still gonna work, but that is a risk. So I shouldn't do string.h in here. That's wrong. That's against rule 3. What you should do rather is that you need just to do it in the source file, because string.h is not used in the header file at all. It's only needed in the source file. So you should only include it wherever is needed, not in the header file, in the source file only, at this case. And the fourth rule for header files, and this is the last rule in header file, is that header file shall have the following ordered layout. So the header file layout shall have the following content. So let me do that. So it needs to begin with, I'm going to delete all these now because it's going to make my life a lot easier. And let me get rid of those two. And well, maybe not all of them. I need to have this one here, of course. Let me delete it for now. I'm sorry. Okay, so header file structure layout, like ordered layout, shall begin with comment header. Like the one above I already have this. And then next one is multiple includes protection. This one, I already have it here. And then we can put our includes. So any include shall go here, like include standard boolean. And then come types. So I'm finally define a new type, like type diff. drv8308, type diff structure, drv8308 config type diff, something like that. This is just an example, obviously. This one goes next, and then in the next section you put all the function prototypes, and then goes callback prototypes. Okay, that's an interesting one. So any include, you put it first. Of course, first is comment header, this one, and then comes the multiple includes protection statement, and then includes, then types, so any type definition. So if you're going to define a new type or defines, all go here. Your function prototypes goes next. So if I want to do my initialization function, it should go here. And then my callback. So let me think of a callback function, something like drv8308 motor is overcurrent. Sorry, callback overcurrent detected. So whenever a motor gets into overcurrent state, this callback will be triggered. Okay, so that's a callback function. We talk about function in a previous video, but this callback prototypes shall go below function prototypes in another section. So any new function will be added here, like void motor set speed, for instance, will go here. And then if you have a callback, will be defined in this section. So this is basically the generic header file layout that I follow. So that's the layout for header file that I use according to the programming star rules that I follow. All right. Now let's talk about programming star rules only specific to source files. For source files, there's just a single rule that I want to highlight, and that is source file shall have the following ordered layout. One of the very important things, of course, before layout is that source file, which is quite trivial in fact, shall include its own header in here. So that should be drv8308. This one is a must, okay, because this source file belongs to this header and so on, okay. So now rule number 1 is source file shall have the following ordered layout. Similar to what we just discussed with the header file, source file should look something like this. It should begin with comment header, which we already have at the top, and then includes, which we have. So this one is the include. Let's just put it here. Okay. And then macros. So if you have any macros, shall go here. Constants. So constant variables. And then variables, if you have any global variables, should go in this section. And then private function prototypes. Private function definition. Sorry. Apologize for the typo. So private function prototype, private function definitions goes next in the ordered layout. And then we need to put our public function definitions that we declared in the header file. And finally, our callback function definitions. So callback definitions. Okay. And that's it. That's basically the layout that I personally follow for source file. In fact, now let's just take a little bit further and demonstrate what each of these are. So we put our include, and we can include something else like standard library if we like, if we use anything in the standard library. Macros, so let's say that I want to define my like the device R2C address, assuming this one is an I2C device. So define drv8308 I2C address. Let's assume this one is 0x12 for simplicity. If I have any constants like constant float, I'm trying to think of one. Well, let's say gear ratio, maybe, yeah. I want to set this to 0.5. Okay. If you have any variables, global variables, maybe something like static, unsigned integer 16, motor speed, initialize this to 0. So all of your variables in the source file shall go here, and basically global variables within the file. If you have another variable, it will go here. For private function prototypes, well, let's say one of my private functions needs to be static, of course. Maybe I2C write. So the I2C function is specific to this motor. So I can do drv8308 motor I2C write, maybe. Okay. And this one is going to just be the data that you want to write, like a pointer to the data array and the length. Okay, so that's a private function prototype. And then private function definition, so I want to define what this function does in here. So just do like I2C write. I can't bother to write the function here, but the definition would go at this section. And then public function definition. Oh, that's straightforward. So the function prototypes, my public function prototypes that I declared in the header file, I can now define them here at this section. So I can define what the initialization function is and what the set speed does. Maybe it's just write the motor speed to whatever passed by the user. All right. And then finally, callback function definition. That simply will be our callback function that we declared in the header file as a prototype. Now we want to define what it actually does in here. Okay, maybe it does like printf, overcurrent is detected and let's equal 200 amps. I'm just kidding, but yeah. So that's basically all I want to show you for the file styling rules. I hope you find this tutorial helpful, and thanks for watching.